last week. We didn't post last week. So it's been a while.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
What's up, everybody? This is relationship. Fuck.
That's the first time ever that's happened, right?
Sorry, real talk. What's up?
This is the fifth house.
This is Theology Thursday.
We are talking about cell salts.
Dude, guys, we do so much that it's crazy sometimes. I guess communication, Mercury retrograde. I think that is the last video we posted, but real talk with Casey and JoJo. What's up, Casey?
Where we at, JoJo? What day is it?
I don't know. Oh, hilarious. All right. So they were like, what just happened? Yeah, that was a slip up, and we just gonna keep it rolling. So today we're gonna talk about astrology in the Bible.
Can't believe you just said that. That's blasphemy. You going to hell?
Nah.
Tell them about it. Why
no. So why are we talking about this? The other day. Okay, first of all, if you guys haven't watched Social Etiquette or Social Media Etiquette, please watch before, understanding what I'm saying, or those of you that have already watched it. But I mentioned before, if you have a belief and you post it out, right? It's one thing. You can continue to scroll. If it triggers you, that's on you, or you can go on your own platform and talk about it. But to go on somebody else's and tell them their beliefs are wrong, I just don't think that is the right thing to do. Okay, so that's just my point of view, right?
That's interesting because I wanted to interrupt you before you got started, and hopefully, and I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Go ahead.
But I wanted to add this too, because the blasphemy thing, right? If you feel, first of all, I would challenge you to reconsider that astrology is blasphemy and not in the Bible, because it's absolutely littered.
We'll get to that. We're
gonna talk about that. But if you're one of those, if you think that's blasphemy, if you think that it's evil from the devil, just understand that you're putting a judgment on something that could potentially be a glue that elevates you to a higher plane, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
Is that a good segue?
I don't know. It has nothing to do with what I was about to say, but that's cool. Okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
I just don't want to lose track from what I was saying. So I will explain that. But the point about the social media etiquette is that I saw on Instagram somebody post something talking down about astrology, talking down about numerology or angel numbers, talking down as if all that stuff is not in the Bible, right? And being that this is what I do as a metaphysical minister / doctor in philosophy, etc., and metaphysical counselor, this is what I do as a specialty. That is my, if it was electricity and they were talking about electricity and I was an electrician, then I would be like, wait a second, I'm an electrician. So because this subject is my subject, this is what I do. It was very difficult, and I found myself getting triggered, right? Because I found it sad that some false beliefs, erroneous beliefs, get turned around and get spread as misinformation, right? But I'm not going to go and say you're wrong, right? That's on her. And her followers, right? Whoever it was. I turned around and decided I'll just use my platform to talk about it, because it's one thing to just make a comment, which nobody will understand anyway, because one comment cannot at all be the same as a whole podcast, right? For example, being able to freely express and say what I'm trying to say, which cannot be done under a comment. So anyway, I didn't say anything, as much as I truly just kind of wanted to be like, man, hypocrisy, but I didn't. So I'm doing it here. So I'm trying to now share why it is so important to talk about why this fear about astrology, and why so much erroneous beliefs. Not why, because I understand why, but just saying there's a lot of erroneous beliefs about astrology and how that relates to the Bible. And it's funny because this person who posted that was like, I love Jesus and all this stuff, but then was being so judgmental and so not Jesus-like. And that is where I see the hypocrisy in all of this, is that how can you judge something based on what a church pastor or man, right, has said and has put into your mind as a belief, or because of some misinterpretation of the Bible, and then all of a sudden you hold on to that like there's nothing else in the world. And that holding on to just that belief, not giving yourself room or the possibility that maybe that belief is erroneous, could be setting you back immensely by not being open-minded enough to hear how astrology is so integrated in the Bible. So much.
So we just said the exact same thing. What I interrupted you with is exactly what I was
but I
trying
was
to say.
getting there. I just wanted to finish my story on how I'm doing
While
this
we're
now
here.
and why we're talking about this, because I felt the need that if you're going to spread that information without knowing and based on your erroneous beliefs, well, then I'm going to come on here and state my point of view based on what I know and how much so astrology is in the Bible. And therefore, you know, if there's a confusion, which there is in society because of, you know, this hierarchy about this subject, you know, it needs to be talked about. And people are going to throw shade, but why are you getting triggered, right, over something that maybe you just don't have enough information about? And a lot of people come from a place of fear of the unknown, and because they don't know astrology, they just go ahead and say, oh, you worship astrology. Like, what? And it doesn't make any sense to an astrologer, because we're like, what are we worshiping here? We're not worshiping anything. What are you talking about?
Or if you're not triggered in a negative way, and the hell, fire, brimstone, you know, type of way, you also dismiss it as like woo-woo,
pseudoscience,
right? Pseudoscience, just like it's a horoscope, you know.
That's
it's
the narrative.
Just some stuff,
right,
that doesn't carry any weight. And oh my,
but yet it's
so
been yet it's been on and on and on forever and ever and ever, because the stars and the constellations have been the same since before time, before the Bible was ever written.
Yes.
It was all written in the stars.
And I would say, based on where I'm at and what I understand about astrology, that in many ways, astrology is essentially the God provided church that should exist outside of you, not the man created church that currently exists today. Does that make any sense? So it's like, you know, we go to church and we hear another man tell us his interpretation of God and help us understand God. The sky, the stars, the astrology, how it affects our bodies, the flow from top to bottom, the cyclical, as above, so below, all of those things are essentially the church delivering the message to you that if you follow me, if you are in alignment with me, right? If you behave in the way that the story that the stars tell, if you behave in this way, you essentially will get to the same place that churchgoers are trying to get.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay, so let's talk about that way. It's all about what is written in the sky is essentially the story of the ego and the higher self, good and evil. You can take an O away from good and you have God. You can add a D to evil, you have the devil. It is essentially the duality of dark and light, which if you look at the yin and yang, you have dark and light, but essentially you still have one wholeness of oneness. And a lot of people discredit one side when it's all one. And
it's
so
balanced.
There's balance.
There's equal amounts of both.
It's day and night. And so, you know, a lot of the misinterpretation, I truly, you know, it's not that I was fully aware of astrology like I am now, back in the day, but I never really got into that whole astrology is bad. I heard it through the grapevine.
Yeah, same
But
here.
I didn't necessarily believe that, because I said, you know, my own, as a child, my mind was like, God made the stars and the sun and the moon, and I don't get it. Like, if he made it, why would it be bad? Right? Like, why is the sun bad when the sun gives us life, when the sun, you know, produces all this energy, this vitalizing energy for us, and the moon, you know, influences the
Yeah.
tides and influences us because we're made of that water, and our ovulation and menstruation, moonstration, has a lot to do with the cycle of the moon, right? And so all these things make a lot of sense to me. So if all of this is based on nature and God created this nature, why would it be
Yeah,
bad? And
I'm
that's
with you.
what got me towards wanting to learn more about astrology and really understand not just astrology, but also how it relates to the Bible. And that's when my mind was blown. And I love to fuse together this biblical astrology because it is so layered in there that you can't see it if you aren't aware of both what the Bible is saying and what astrology means. If you don't know what astrology is, you have one without the other and you can't see the whole picture.
Yeah, no, it's so cool because yeah, it was the same for me. Like growing up, I understood the moon because I'm in science, right? I like science, and so I understood the moon, the waves, all those things, and how it affects man, nature, the earth, everything. And it's like, God put that there, right? So how can you discredit a planet, a moon, a celestial body, whatever it is, that God literally made and just say, oh, it's the devil? Like, no, he built it for a reason. It was created for a reason. And if the moon was created for a reason and the sun was created for a reason, what about the other seven planets or however many, six planets, right? I don't know. It's
So
cool.
that leads us to I'm going to bring this up, Genesis 1:14. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. It's kind of like saying, if you are aware of the weather and you know that it's going to rain, then you know that you're going to grab a jacket or an umbrella because you want to be prepared for that rain. If you know that it's going to be sunny, you're not going to go out there with a jacket on, right? So it's like there's certain signs along these constellations that influence us, that show us different energies, like it's going to rain, it's going to be windy, it's going to be sunny, it's going to be snowy. It's kind of the same thing. It just tells us, what it is that we need to look for. Psalms 147:4 says, he tells the number of the stars, he calls them all by their names. And we have them. They are Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. These are their names. These are the constellations. And within these constellations, there's even more. They're called deacons within every 10 degrees. Deacons,
So hold on, hold on.
a deacon, huh?
So
A
let's stop.
deacon.
Let's stop it. Let's
Just
stop and
like in your
explain that.
religion.
So real quick, if you don't know, 360 degrees is the entire circle, right? Each section is 90 degrees, broken down into three signs, each sign being 30 degrees, each three deacons being 10 degrees, 10 times 3 is 30, 3 times 3 is 90, 9 times 4 seasons is 360.
So it tells us the year. It's like a clock. It's basically saying these three signs are going to be the spring. These next three signs are going to be summer. The next three are going to be fall. The next three are going to be winter. If you know the energies of each, you know when it's time to plow, when it's time to harvest your food, when it's time to go inwardly, when it's time to let things go. It is just like it is in nature, as it is in our mind, as it is emotionally. It's all connected. And it's just saying, are you aware of these changes? Cast thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion. That's in Job 38:31 and 32. 32, cast thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season, or cast thou guide Arcturus with his sons. Right there, in just those two, you're talking about the Pleiades cluster in Taurus, in the constellation Taurus, in the bands of Orion, Orion being in the constellation of Taurus. And can you bring forth Mazzaroth in his season? Mazzaroth is the zodiac. Can you tell what season we're in based on the zodiac, based on what the constellations are, or where the sun is or the moon is as it crosses through these stars? Like, since when does looking at the path of the sun through the constellations, like at what point does that become bad? Can you tell me from your point
No,
of view?
I mean, I think growing up, the only real reason I ever heard, and there's a verse, I have no idea what it is, but it refers to trying to predict the future, like going
Fortune
to
telling.
fortune tellers, right? So it's always been shown to be devilish because of the fortune telling, predicting the future, things like that. And that was really the only justification I've ever heard
Right. But
about
it's funny
astrology.
how what they don't bring up is that Joseph was a fortune teller. He used to read the signs
The
of
tea
what
leaves.
the tea leaves, and he used to interpret dreams. And he was blessed by God, right? And he was a fortune teller. It's in the Bible. So you can choose to pick one thing and focus on that, or you could look at the other side of the coin. There's always two sides to everything.
Yeah, and I'll say too, like life lesson, like life hack. If anyone says it's of the devil, you should probably look into it, right? Within reason, use your better judgment. But saying astrology is of the devil, you should probably look into it, right?
Especially when you have half the world into astrology. It's like,
Yes.
and I find it funny how people can judge somebody and label them as bad or good without looking at their intentions, at their heart, like how they are, what they post.
Yeah,
Like they're just looking straight up at the label and then just putting. That's like if you were a Democrat versus Republican, and then I was like, "Oh, you're this." So now I'm going to think you're blah 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 blah. And it's like, really, no, you're more than that. You're not this label.
well, and I think too, I mean, again, I'm not, don't want anyone to get triggered or hurt by or offended by what I'm going to say, but Christians, been there. I wouldn't call myself a Christian anymore, but grew up in the church, and the story of
Not the typical Christian, but you're the more Christed, more Christ-like than most Christians.
the story of Christianity, right, is such of, I don't know, it's not a good story, right? So in other words, like, the what is it, the Crusades, the way in which Jesus has been promoted and God has been promoted is such that, of course, you're going to have Christian people reacting that way in judgment, right? In anger, because they're only replicating out the story that has been told and the story that has been lived out over the years, right? The witch trials. How can anyone blessed with God, blessed with the Holy Spirit, murder, burn, and torture people, no matter what, for doing nothing, just for allegedly being magical, right?
And you can see that in society now with wars and with,
Right,
pointing the finger at others.
right.
And this still that same blame of others and judgment of others.
Right. And America has, America, the United States has long been a superpower. I don't know how many thousands, millions, I don't know, people have been murdered because of the United States military. It's way more than it should be. But the point is that, to a country to be founded under God, the way the United States has told its story, but then to do some of the things that it does, it just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. It's hypocritical. Right. And, for me, it's like, that's not the story. I don't want to be a part of that story. But this story, like when you really open up your mind to astrology and to the connection between the physiology of our body. And the hard part is nobody teaches this shit,
Right.
right? Like you have
We
to
do in the Kiwi Academy.
you have to like really want to know about this. And I think that's part of the problem and why,
There's a lot of
astrology
fear
hasn't been
around it.
proliferated. Well, it's because like, yeah, you got that, but prove me wrong. It's hard to do that.
You can't.
It's not an easy conversation. It's not something you do over Instagram or Facebook, right? Like there's a verse in the Bible too that talks about, I think, that talks about how you have to thirst for knowledge, right? You have to want it. It's not something, don't make me prove to you truth. If I have to prove truth to you, you're not interested in seeking out truth at all. You're interested in proving your narrative and why you're correct, which is of the ego and is complete bullshit, right? But what was I saying? I got caught up in that.
The Bible, how it talks about the thirst and hunger for, like, you
Right. So
have
you
to
have
have
to,
a true
yes,
desire to want to have this communion, this union, this Christ
this
mind,
understanding.
this understanding, this wisdom, right? Truth and understanding. You have to seek it. Seek and you shall find truth and understanding, wisdom. You will find it when you seek it. Most people are not seeking it because they're scared of it.
Right. And when you start down this path, and it's the path that both of we are on, and again, this isn't judgment, this isn't better than, less than, it's just simple truth
It's
in the
just a
path,
path.
right? And our path is that when you look at this and you allow this knowledge to like penetrate your psyche, penetrate your mind, and sort of really penetrate your spirit, you start to realize that like the only thing in this world that I have to worry about is right here in this little flesh suit that I'm wearing. And when you learn that, commenting on somebody else's Instagram post, gossiping, talking shit about other people, all the things that fuel most of us, and we know because that was our path once, we're here now, and that's how, you have to understand the duality. You have to experience both sides of the duality to be able to like have a true understanding of it, right? And we're here, and I don't need anything but me, right? Only me matters. So if I'm scrolling and she's about astrology, and I'm like, this bitch crazy. She's full of shit. She's a witch. She looks like a witch. Look at all that dark hair and makeup. She witching, right? Got some tattoos, right? Then that's a me problem. Like I immediately need to know that I got some work to do. I need to look in the fucking mirror and figure out why this girl triggered me, because it's not her, it's me. And that to me is the difference.
Very, very true. There's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of judgment placed. And, astrology is astrology. Astro being the stars, logy meaning the study of. This is the study of light. And I'm sorry, in the Bible, it says God is light, right?
I believe it says that.
I believe so. So, you can't take that away and say, oh, but that's not what that means. No, we are studying light. We are studying electromagnetism. We are studying the wave, the sine wave. We are studying how the light moves, how the sun moves throughout this wave, throughout these 12 posts or apostles or disciples or discs. They are all the same thing. It is energy from each one that is based on our elements: fire, earth, earth, water, air, fire. Like these are part of nature. They are part of us. This is who we are. You cannot take away the fact that we are carbon and we are also water and we are also air and we breathe. Like this is all intertwined with who we are. Take away the beliefs that you have ingrained in you and think about what I'm actually saying. These elements are all within us and they are all outside of us. They are all in and they are also above. It is in the macrocosm as it is in the microcosm, down to the cells. And he did a whole series on the 12 cell salts and how they relate to astrology. And it is amazing when you find out how down to the core of like your cerebrum and your the cerebellum, and you really start to learn these things that are super. I mean, you break down Grey's Anatomy, the book, it's that thick about your own body, and you start seeing how it correlates to, I mean, this is like true learning, how it correlates to your anatomy, which is an atom, how Genesis is showing you how, oh, look, the first person, Adam. And we take Eve out or the rib out, and now we have Eve. And so they never tell us how the taking out an electron from an atom creates multiplication and continue. This is telling us something deeper, and it's always coming back to the atom, which is basically light. It's information. It's a photon. It's what we're talking about. It's deep. So to say you don't know what you're talking about because the Bible says so, right? And not knowing that I have tons of information, like full of nothing but scripture of each one: Gemini, Cancer, Libra, all of them, Scorpio, pages and pages of scriptures that basically go over each and every single sign.
Yeah. And so why do you think, if I'm listening to this, right? And I hear you, but what good does that do?
Why is it important?
Why is it important? Why do I need to understand the stars and how it relates to my physiology and the cerebrum all the way down to Pisces, my feet? Why does that matter?
I think it truly matters. And I think we're going to talk about that next week. All about why it matters. So yeah, this is a two-parter. Stay tuned for part 2 next week, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Is that it?
Yeah, man. It's good.
That's it. Peace.